had when Donald Trump was nominated, I had 150 pastors down at the Capitol. They were talking to me, and they were what are we going to do? He's been married before, and all the other things, and they were just wringing their hands. What do we do? I said, let me tell you this. In World War II, you had no problems calling George F. Patton the front to fight the Nazis. Because in killing Nazis, he was good. I said, you would not like his language, you would not like his tactics, but you know what? At killing Nazis, he was upstream. And here's what I'm going to tell you. I don't know a good Christian man who can deal with Hillary Clinton, but I said, I believe that Donald Trump can take her out to the woodshed and get through with her. And he did.
Hey, this is D Knight from the Part of the Insurrection podcast, coming to you from Nashville, Tennessee, courtesy of Tennessee Brando. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Your man is killing the game. He is killing the game on YouTube. Y'all better get on the bandwagon while you can. And that was Marty Hardin, a Georgia Republican who was speaking at a rally that was headlined by Ted Cruz, where he said a number of extraordinarily offensive things, like comparing, defeating Democrats to killing Nazis, and then making an allusion to Trump doing such with Hillary Clinton, taking her out behind the woodshed, and so to speak. A lot of extraordinarily disturbing stuff. He also made a number of other comments that were rather offensive, but one in particular where he basically told a crowd full of Republicans in Georgia to blackmail their kids into voting for Republicans.
But here's what you need to do. You need to call your grandchildren when you get home. And you need to get them to give you, because I'm looking across this, I'm looking for young people. I don't see is there's a lot of gray hair and no hair, all that, okay? You tell them you're going to cut them out of your will, you're not going to do anything unless they vote. And I tell you what, maybe they need to take a picture of how they vote too, as well, so that it gets done, and it gets done right.
Now, Marty Hardin's a longtime Georgia state senator. He's not new to politics in any fashion whatsoever. He even sits on the state ethics committee. For someone who's supposedly responsible for upholding ethics, he's doing a poor job here. Now, of course, it's not quite public, but he's in front of a crowd, so I wouldn't consider these private comments. But it's always funny when they're not in front of the cameras, or at least they don't believe that they are. And they're within their own ranks. They say the most absurd and horrific things, like just alluding to the idea of having Trump physically kill Hillary Clinton the way the Allies killed the Nazis in World War II. It's fucking horrifying. If anything, they're the Nazis. But look, he's not the only one who got caught on candid camera. Let's cut to a video of Roger Stone.
I know you are. Tell that. Unlike some other pictures. I'm going to send this to Joe Biden. I thought he could be our post.
That's it.
Do you mind taking a photo with me, Mr. Stone?
Sure.
You're in a position to know more than anybody else. How are you feeling about the election?
Too early to say.
Biden can't win again.
No, but it can be stolen again.
We're in a whole... But there's got to be something we can do to prevent that.
We're working on this, but I'm not saying that I'm totally confident yet, because I'm not. By the way, in 2020, only 65% of evangelical Christians bothered to vote. So when you tell people, "Oh, we're doing great," then this happens. I don't have to worry about voting. So that's our biggest overconfidence is one of our giant problems right now among our own people.
But so, what are we going to do to stop it, though? Thank you.
I'll tell you the same thing I told her. We're working on it.
Well,
lawyers, judges, technology.
Governors?
Some, but there aren't many letting go.
We got to use every lever we can.
We are doing that. All right.
You're doing the Lord's work.
Thank you.
That was video provided by Lauren Windsor of Roger Stone, confessing on tape about Republicans' plans to use lawyers, technology, and get this, judges, in order to decide the outcome of the 2024 election. Hey, Roger, how are you working with judges? Are they supposed to be like independent arbiters of the law when making judicial decisions? I mean, this couldn't possibly have anything to do with the tape that leaked last week of Samuel Alito, where he confessed to not only being well aware of the cultural war between liberal and conservative ideologies, but basically being their best fighter and using his position on the bench to ensure that his side gets victory. Probably not, but it's entirely possible. Also, there's that whole Clarence Thomas thing where he's accepted millions of dollars in gifts and favors from Republican billionaire Harlan Crow, among others. Apparently they have the judicial branch wrapped up in their minds. I couldn't necessarily be sure that he's alluding to the Supreme Court, but anything is possible at this point. Anyway, that's not all. There's more.
I genuinely think you're here. Pleasure to meet you.
Such an important election year, and what are we going to do? Donald Trump is
Yes, but between now and then, we're going to work very hard and very smart to try to make sure that doesn't happen. And so far, given the incredible power they have and they will use ruthlessly, we're beating them as of today. So in the end, I would beat the president's trial in Georgia's falling apart. I think the judge is on the verge of dismissing the charges against him in Florida. They're delayed in New York City, and they're now delayed in Washington. So it's not clear that they can have a trial before the election, which is the absolute key to being able to convince people that the reason we lost was because of the trial. Right now, if they steal it, people say, well, that's not possible. Trump is leading in all the polls. They want to try him, suck up his money, suck up his time, and create the reason why their theft is plausible, believable. You see?
Yeah, what stops them from just like voter fraud? Like
They in some states it'll be easier to stop them, in other places it won't. But at least this time, when they do it, you have a lawyer and a judge whose home phone number standing by so you can stop him. We made no preparations last time. None.
Well, I was at the Capitol, so I'm prepared to go back.
Well, that may not be necessary. There are technical and legal steps that we have to take to try to have a more honest election. We're not there yet, but there are things that can be done. It's a long conversation. I'm working with changes in state law, real-time voter list monitoring, going to court as we just did to challenge some of the voter lists. The election's not tomorrow. We went into court to sue in Michigan over the handling of ballots, which we sued in half a dozen places. And then we're finally now on offensive footing. Remember, the Republican National Committee raised $200 million and they didn't spend any of it to try to get cleaner elections. They were looking at what happened last time. We now finally have control of that mechanism. Don't be discouraged.
So we're going to spend, the RNC is going to spend more money now than ours.
Far more.
Do you want to get a picture?
I'll bring it.
Can I get a picture?
Sure.
That was Roger Stone saying that the Republican Party is in possession of the home phone numbers of judges to call them after the 2024 election in case they lose, in order to ensure that they receive a favorable result in court. I'm assuming that would be overturning the election and awarding Republicans the victory. Also, he seems to have some sort of insight into whether or not Judge Cannon down there in South Florida, overseeing Trump's trial in the classified documents case, is willing to dismiss those charges here soon. I wonder how he could have gathered such information. Also, the implication there being that now that Trump's put his family in charge of the RNC, they'll be spending money in a way that apparently the insiders in Trump's camp think will be more favorable to them. Also, not to mention the fact that he says there that as of right now, another January 6th isn't necessary, but apparently things could change. In case you were wondering whether or not they're willing to take credit for what happened on January 6th. I mean, when they speak in private, it appears as though they're well aware of their role in that particular instance. Not to mention, we even have tape of Ted Cruz speaking in private about what was to occur on January 6th, days before it happened in 2021.
I think that the country deserves to have a credible assessment of these claims and what the evidence shows. And the mechanism to try to force that is denying certification on the 6th.
Who's deciding who gets inaugurated?
It would be the results of that commission and what they find. And if they found credible evidence of fraud that undermines confidence in the electoral results in any given state, they would report on that.
I think the biggest takeaway for me is that when Republicans are amongst themselves, they're willing to say the quiet part out loud, right? Like the things that we all know that they're thinking and probably saying amongst each other behind closed doors. It appears as though when those doors do in fact close, that's exactly what they're saying, right? They are who we thought they were. As Kendrick Lamar would say, they ain't like us. Like our Supreme Court, it's already been corrupted by a number of conservative justices who aren't there to call balls or strikes or interpret the law. They're in the bag for Republicans. They're there to help the Republican Party win. Right? We already have a number of conservative members of Congress in the Republican Party who clearly plotted to help overturn the 2020 election in advance of January 6th, an event that led to an attack on the Capitol that could have ended their own lives. And like they can't even come out and disparage the attack at this point, right? And then we have Roger Stone alluding to some kind of pre-election plot to overturn the results in case they lose, or maybe they interfere with the election in some way, some sort of tampering with judges, and who knows what else they have in the works. But the point here is clearly Republicans have no concern for democracy, and they are obviously taking account of the polls here lately that show Biden clearly trouncing, or likely trouncing Trump in 2024, especially here after his conviction. And it has them shook. Like they're editing videos and pictures to make Biden appear as though he doesn't know where he is. It's stuff that's all clearly debunked. Obviously, they're scared. And this is information that alludes to the idea that they likely have something planned for 2024, the same way they did for January 6th after they lost the 2020 election. But we'll have to stay tuned for that, or more developments in that department. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button. Please feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you could, give it a thumbs up. You know, that does always help out the algorithm. And if you would like, you can also find me on my personal podcast, Pardon the Insurrection, available everywhere podcasts are found, and also here on YouTube.